All right, guys, we got this old car in the shop. I don't know why it's here, but it's brought back some memories. Thought I'd go over my top 5 biggest mistakes that I've made as a mechanic. We're gonna go 5 with the least painful and number 1 being the most painful. Let's get into it. Number 5. Number 5 was actually, the reason it's number 5 is because it was on my personal car. It was a 68 Mustang with a 289 in it, had a manual transmission, and I was putting a clutch in it. This is way early in my career. I was putting a clutch in it, got the whole thing back together. I was actually working on it in the at the hobby shop on the base here, on the naval base here, and got it all the way back together, ready to go. And the guy that kind of ran the place, mechanic guy ran the place, you know, he walked over and went, "Hey man, you forgot something," and he pointed to the ground. I didn't even know what it was. Gosh almighty. It was the pilot bushing. So I didn't even put the pilot bushing back in the car. Unfortunately, that requires taking everything back apart. So I had to take the whole transmission back out, which now looking back on it for me now, it's a very easy one to pull out. But back then, it took me a full day to do this thing. So I had to pull the whole thing back out and redo the whole job and start all over again. So it was kind of my first thing and one of the things that I do now on every car is I always stop before I move forward, and I'm like, okay, did I do all these steps? Did I, remember all the little steps that I did? So I think that's a whole other video on how I kind of finish stuff up. But anyway, that's number 5. Number 4 was I worked for a guy early in my career. He's a great guy. We're still good friends to this day, and he owned the shop that I worked at. I've actually worked for him a couple of times, and I actually ended up getting the shop from him later down the road. But this was when I was young, just started off. Thank God he was patient with me. I was putting, and he's going to be represented in 2 things on this list. But on this one, it was an Oldsmobile. I want to say it was like a 305. Don't quote me on the engine size. Maybe 305, 307, I think was maybe. Anyway, it was a very big intake manifold, so it couldn't have been a 305. Anyways, very big intake manifold. Oh, heavy cast iron intake manifold. And this vehicle was probably back an early 80s model, something like that. And it had for those of you out there that worked on these things, tons of vacuum lines all over them. Had the, I think they were called thermistor valves, which was like, they went down into the cooling port and had multiple vacuum lines through them. They were trying to do emissions control without really having the technology to do emissions control. But anyway, so it just made our lives really, really difficult. A lot of wires going to it, stuff. Well, this particular one, I got it apart, and this is one that, not like a modern car, this is one that the intake manifold actually seals the top of the engine. So underneath this intake manifold with the lifters and everything, so you're into the oil, so you had to seal the ends. The gaskets were definitely 100% one-time use. You're not using that thing again. Put the thing together, got it all bolted down, went to hook everything up, got everything hooked up, went to go plug in the coolant temp sensor, which was on top of the intake. And when I put the intake down, I had run the wire, caught the wire under it. So the wire had gone under the end valley and in through the one of the side portions of it where the intake ports are. So anyway, it was pinched in there. Only thing I could do would be I had to take the whole intake back off and redo the whole thing, new gaskets, scrape everything, clean everything, start over again. So very time consuming. He was very patient with me. So anyway, that was a big mistake. It was a very time consuming mistake. So it wasn't a lot of money because the gaskets weren't super expensive, but it was definitely a lot of time. Hey guys, real quick, we're getting really close to that 100K. How about hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you know when we get there. Massive giveaway. Automotive Test Solutions is giving us that e-scan. That's a fantastic giveaway. Plus, we're going to put more stuff in with it. So hit that subscribe button now. Hit that bell notification. Hit that thumbs up if you're liking the video. And hey, leave a comment down below. Let me know what your biggest mistake that you've made in the business has been. Let's get back to the video. All right, number 3. Same guy I worked for. This one was interesting. Gosh, you look back on stuff, guys. You know what? For all you older guys out there, you know, sometimes you just sit down and just think back to your younger days. Well, I tell you, as we were discussing this, it's like, wow, the things that are coming to my mind, and I'm sure I have plenty more that I could go over. They'll probably start coming back to me. But this one was a air conditioner had come in on a vehicle. Our vehicle came in with an air conditioner not draining properly. So it was getting into the car. Water was getting in the car from the evaporator core. I want to say it was an Oldsmobile again, maybe Cadillac. It was again an 80s model, maybe late 70s, early 80s. The evaporator core is actually out in the engine compartment, so it bolts to the firewall, and it's out in the engine compartment. And the drain is actually on the bottom of this plastic housing in the engine compartment, just a hole in the bottom of it. So, but when it overflows, when it fills up, it'll flow into the car. Well, he just told me, he said, hey, go clean out that drain on that evaporator core. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I just had no idea. So I went and got I looked up, I saw the hole, and I went and I saw some stuff in there. I went and got a really long Phillips head screwdriver. And I took that screwdriver, and I can see it right now. I took that screwdriver and I put it up in that hole, and I just went, just to clean that hole out. I cleaned the hole out really, really quick. Put a hole right in the bottom of the evaporator core. Refrigerant shot right out, blew that hole right open. I can laugh about it now, but I had no idea what was in that box. I mean, I didn't know how it worked at all. I learned really quickly. So anyway, as you can probably guess, I had to put a new evaporator core in it. So he got the evaporator core. I stayed that night. I actually stayed late that night and took it apart. First one I ever did, and he trusted me to do it. You know what? I don't know if that was smart or not, but I got it done, and I'm thankful for him to be, you know, have patience with me and be trusting, and help me become, you know, the tech and the owner that I've become today. Without him, I definitely would not have become what I am now. But got the evaporator core put in it, replaced it, you know, got it vacuumed down, charged up, everything worked fine. So it was that was a bit more. That was very time consuming and kind of expensive on the part, but got done and I learned from it. Never did that again, I can promise you that. The final two are actually on the same vehicle at different times, but this was, I worked for a guy, super great guy, super nice guy. I worked for him at a parts store. I was extremely young during this deal, and he wanted to build a race car. So he had I think it was a 71 Roadrunner, big, huge, heavy car, wanted to build a drag car, and he owned this car since it was brand new, and I want to say this was early 80s, something like that. We tried to talk him out of it. We're like, man, this is a really great car. Boy, that car today would be really worth some money. He didn't care. He owned several cars. He had the Smokey and the Bandit, Trans Am. He had a bunch of cars and a lot of nice cars. But anyway, he wanted to build us into a race car. So, okay, we gutted the car. We got it all, you know, ready to be a race car. He bought an engine from some guys that did nothing but Chrysler race car engines. Got that in there. We were building the differential in it. So we were doing this particular part of it in the garage of his house. And so I'm going to try to give you guys the, you know, what it looked like there. So he lived down kind of a beach house kind of looking thing where, for those of you that have never been on the beach or, you know, lived on something like that or been around something like that, they tend to have a center column kind of thing where you can get up into the house because the house is raised. And then on either side of it, he had a garage. So the race car was in this garage, and his daughter's Barracuda was in this garage, a pink Barracuda. And we had the differential built. We were building the differential over here and got it all done, ready to go. But his daughter needed her differential fluid changed. So we were like, okay, no big deal. We'll use the fluid that we were going to put, the same fluid. We're going to use the fluid that we were going to put in the race car. We'll change hers and get that done, and then we'll come back and get some new fluid because we didn't have enough that night. We were doing it at night to do this one. All right. cool. We got hers done. Fast forward, everything's cool. We, just to tell you, we forgot to put the fluid in this differential. We never did do it. We get the car to the racetrack. It's all set to go. We're going to do some runs, and we're just trying it out. So we get there. He made 2 runs, I want to say. I want to see that thing made 2 full runs. And that differential ripped itself to pieces. He's going down the track, and you can just see the whole back end lock up and the whole car just turn. And we were like, what in the world just happened? We get the car back. We took it back to the parts store. I remember this. Put it inside a little thing at the parts store. Took it apart. At this point, we still don't know what happened. We're like, we never remember that we didn't do the fluid in it. Got it all the way apart, and the inside of that was just totally disintegrated, metal everywhere. He was such a nice guy, such a great guy. He walked out there. He just had some ways of putting things. He looked. If you want to visualize this guy, he looked just like Waylon Jennings. This dude looked just like Waylon Jennings. So look him up for you younger guys. He came out there, and we told him what happened, and he just went. I can't say the words that he said, but it was just funny the way he said it. His deep voice, and he's just like, oh, and he just walked off. Didn't get mad. We got us a new ring and pin. Got us all new guts for it. We got everything cleaned out, put it back together, and got him back going again. But yeah, that was a pretty costly mistake and time, and just really was. I'm glad that it didn't do something really, really major bad with him. But yeah, it was a big mistake that I learned from, to be sure to be more thorough on stuff like that. Number 1, this one was scary. This one could have turned bad. Thank God it didn't. So the engine that he bought for this race car, this 71 Roadrunner, had a single intake manifold on it, single carburetor intake on it. And he wanted, the guy that owned the car wanted us to put a tunnel ram on it with 2 carburetors on it. So we ended up getting a tunnel ram. We got 2 Holley 600s at the time. I remember that. I think that's right, 600s. There was, the 650s were like the ones you really, really liked, and then for some reason we got 600s. I don't know why. Anyway, they were vacuum secondary, meaning that the secondary, so you've got 4 throttle butterflies, we'll call them, and the secondary ones were vacuum operated. You don't want that really on a race car, at least back then we didn't, so wanted those to be mechanical. So he bought a kit for these things to make them from vacuum to mechanical or something. I can't really remember exactly what went wrong. I just remember that I took out a little bar on the throttle. For those of you that remember this stuff, remind me what happened here. Remind me what you think happened. There was a little rod that would close the secondary off when you let off the throttle. And somehow or another, that rod got taken. I took them off, both of them. I don't know if we were trying to make that secondary open faster or what we were doing on it. But I left that off. And he went down the track. This was a 1-run deal. He went down the track. Now, thank God, this was a 1/8 mile drag strip. And at the end of the 1/8 mile drag strip was a circle track, a dirt circle track. And when they opened the drag strip up, what they would do is they would open the gates up to the dirt track so that if a car did what happened with this car, it could go onto the dirt track and have room to slow down, more room to slow down. So he goes down, takes the run, and the run goes really, really good, and then he just keeps going. And I see the car kind of swerve, and then it went onto the dirt track, and then it slowed down. He ended up driving it back. He was a little hot on this one. This one he was a little hot on, which I don't blame him one bit, because once we found out what happened. So what had happened was the secondary throttles had opened up. Maybe we still had the vacuum on them. I don't remember, to be honest with you, exactly what went down. This goes back, this has got to be 38 years ago, something like that. So, but what ended up happening was the secondaries opened, but because I had removed that rod, they never closed again. They just stayed open. And he ended up having to shut the fuel pumps off to get the engine to shut off. So that's what the swerving was him reaching for the toggle switches for the fuel pump. So that was my number one biggest mistake, because, you know, had it not been for that circle track, had it not been that he had that extra room, that could have been really, really, really bad. And the fact that he, you know, had the thought process to not panic and get those things shut off, and, you know, that really, really saved him. So, you know, again, one of those things where I didn't know how it actually functioned, and I made a mistake with the rod, leaving the rod off. If I'd have known, I mean, clearly if I'd have known that the rod had to be in there to shut it off, I would have never, you know, if I could have thought about stuff, I would have never let it happen. But so that was my biggest mistake in this business. And I know that some of these had nothing to do with client cars, but these definitely, even when you're working on somebody else's vehicle for fun, or like a race car, or, you know, your own car, you can certainly learn from those mistakes. You much rather learn from it on your own car than on a client's car. But those are my 5 biggest ones that I've made. I'm sure there's plenty more, and maybe we'll do a secondary video on this if I can think of some more. I guarantee you there's more. I would say it's been really fun going back in time and you know, thinking about all these things that I did, but kind of a little bit painful, not so fun. But hey, we got to learn from stuff. So if you like the video, how about hit all those buttons? You know what to do. Getting close to 100K. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one.